advice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you need the wrong or right.
Hello.
Oh, hello there, Matt. Chip Pirio. Top of the morning to you. Bob's your uncle, a governor.
Hey.
Hello, this is Rob here, back from England. I did not become a small English child in the meantime.
Well, Rob, you say that. However, you're wearing something that looks like a cross between a sailor's outfit and the gowns they used to dress children in.
Matt,
and you need to put that very large lollipop down.
This is a cashmere jumper, and I actually did get this in England.
Rob is back from his investigation of Games Workshop and the Little Lord Fauntleroy School for Fancy Lads.
Fancy lads. I'm very posh now. I
learned a Tory now.
I learned a lot about. No, I'm a Lib Dem, Matt. Don't be ridiculous. I learned a lot about Games Workshop. I tried to make a thing out of it, and it's just the most bonkers. It's just stocks, man. How do they work? I don't know. It's I don't know. It's it's a weird company, weird place, weird thing to be on the English Stock Exchange. And
in the quaint English village that you were sequestered in, next to the Green, the Commons, and the Lord's Manor, I'm guessing they also had a Game Workshop display store.
They did have. There was a Games Workshop in the provincial village that I was in. Next to the tobacconists and the.
Will you buy this record? It is scratched. Actually, Rob, I think we can have a universal theory of explaining England just by the fact that they have Game Workshop stores that sell little plastic men with big guns in every town. That, I think, explains England.
I mean, if I didn't know better, I would say it's some kind of elaborate money laundering scheme. But I do know better. And it unfortunately, that would actually make more sense economically. But no, yeah, it's England. It is the type of place where you can have a comprehensive, free national healthcare system and also starving children. Because somehow there is money for a very robust social safety net, but wherever possible, they create holes just to punish people, just to make sure that nobody is entirely too comfortable with their otherwise very generous social programs.
Well, I've only made it up to about the 1970s in British history, but I'm going to guess that very attractive politician from season 4 of The Crown is going to solve some of these problems. Anyway,
I can't wait for gorgeous MILF Gillian Anderson to do good things in season 4 of The Crown.
Damn it.
God, I'm still mad about it. I'm still mad about it.
Anyway, one thing we're not mad about is that you're back from England, and we're here to talk to you about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
That's right. Oh, and by the way, in case for some reason you're listening for the first time, this is the podcast Dungeon Master of None.
I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
And I'm Dungeon Master Rob. And yes, today we're going to be talking about the brand new Wizards of the Coast comprehensive rules tome, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
And you're right to say guide, because if you don't know what this is Xanathar's Guide to Everything 2. It is a book mostly filled with subclasses for players, plus some magic items, spells, and some dungeon master things at the end.
More so than even Xanathar's, this leans really, really heavily into class options, alternative class options, and subclasses. Xanathar's had a lot of that, but it also had some other things. This is 80% class stuff. Not that that's a bad thing. Just so you know going into this what this is. This is for character options, first and foremost.
I think I want to say that if you're a dungeon master like Rob is, like I am, who wants to give your players lots and lots of options. I think we wholeheartedly recommended Xanathar's because we're just like, oh, more things. We love more things. I mean, we love this. We love more things.
We love more things. This is what we can do is like jump into general impressions, but like I've always said, both in terms of how good the game is, but also like power wise, more options is better. Now it can get overwhelming. You do run into problems with like late 3.5 where you have like rules bloat, but honestly, with role-playing games, especially with Dungeons and Dragons, more is better, and ultimately it's easier for you to say, okay, we're going to narrow the scope rather than for you to try to homebrew something to fill in the gaps. So this is good. This is a good book to have.
Why it's good is exactly what
Yeah.
Rob said. Is one of our big gripes with 5th edition D&D is there's not enough stuff in there for you to make the character that you want, and this is just another large step in that direction.
Yeah, we'll get into this when we talk about specific classes, but one of my main gripes, and to be fair, we are now, 6 years into 5th edition? But, is that for certain classes, two different characters will play almost identical, right? Like there's one of the main problems with 5th edition is that sometimes there's very little to distinguish one fighter from another fighter or one wizard from another wizard. And Tasha's takes a big step in the right direction for this, especially for certain classes that suffered there. But yeah, I honestly wish that 5th edition had launched with a lot of these options, because it would have forestalled a lot of my big problems with the game. So I'm a huge fan of Tasha's. There are some problems with it, but this is good stuff. These are smart, well designed, not too powerful character options that I think give people a lot of tools to work with.
The other overall impression I have, speaking specifically about the player-focused stuff, is if you're like me and always read the Unearthed Arcana when they come out, have bought the other books for Dungeons & Dragons, the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, the Eberron source book, you will have seen basically everything in the player's option before. So like while I was going through it, I was spending a lot of time being like, is this different in any way than the previous version? So you're not going to be surprised by any of the character options here.
There's not a lot, yeah.
If you're like me and are addicted to looking at new options.
Right. There's not a lot here that's new. It is all, however, in the same place. It's polished and
the art is great. It looks there's lots of fun, great art. Yeah.
I don't feel like robbed just because I've seen most of this in other books or in the Unearthed Arcana. Just because, well, one, it doesn't count, but also, or it doesn't always count, but just because it's well, a lot of these classes or subclasses have received a much needed balancing update and some polish, and it's well organized. I don't have to go to 5 different documents to look for all these subclasses anymore. I do.
That's the other big thing is for the first time, and again, these are all optional rules, but there are optional balancing rules that help out maybe not every class that needed it, but most of the classes that could use a little bit of tweaking or a little bit of buffing. Monk, Ranger, etc.
Right.
We'll get into them.
We'll talk about this when we get to the classes themselves. But the one gripe I would have with Tasha's, and you should be aware of this going in, is that not every class received an equal amount of attention and an equal amount of improvement or option. And yeah, so some wizards did a really good job of adding options, and some got a couple new subclasses and not a lot else. And that's fine, but there's clear areas where big steps were made to make the classes more powerful and more interesting, to bring them on the same level as wizards' favorites, like Warlock, for example.
Paladin.
But there are other areas where all you have in this book is just a couple of subclasses, which are fine, but don't necessarily do a lot to add to the depth or competitiveness or power level of a given class. But overall, it does something for every class, so you will probably find something to like.
Big picture stuff, if you like mechanical, interesting things and classes that need bonuses and things getting tweaked, you will like this book. You're probably going to want to get it. Shall we dive into some specifics here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here's what I want to start with. Is all of the Wizard books now in 5th edition have like a theme and like a voice, like a presenter that really only matters for the art and the marginalia. This is Tasha, aka Igwilv, from Greyhawk. Do you like this character, Tasha? Last time we had Xanathars, we've had Volo, we've had Mordenkainen.
No, I did not like Tasha very much. I'm sorry to say. I wanted to, but look, I don't want to be mean, Matt. And I appreciate the efforts that Wizards is making, but every time we have one of these narrators, they're just trying too hard, Matt. They're just trying too hard to be funny, and they're not funny. And it bothers me. It just bothers me.
This bothers me a little bit too, because I think Tasha, also known as Igwilv, is a super interesting character, right? Another character like Mordenkainen from Greyhawk, right? Still don't have that Greyhawk supplement. That is super great. However, the voice of the character is almost indistinguishable from Mordenkainen or Xanathar. They're the kind of try-hard wittiness of like, haha, I'm evil but also sarcastic, and I'll kill you if I want to.
The only one that actually like does not have that voice is Volo, and he's just being like, lore nerd, which frankly at this point I appreciate, because he's not doing the same thing that every other narrative character is doing. Look, I don't mind this. I like the quips, I like the jokes, but they need to be better at it. Sorry, Wizards, if you're gonna do this for every single one of your narrative voices, you gotta be better at it. You gotta hire somebody who's better at writing. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I don't want to be mean, but like, it's just not funny. You gotta be funnier.
The character of Tasha, Igwilv, is a great character, just needs to be presented better. However, the art of Tasha in this book is amazing.
Raised by Baba Yaga, Igwilv and Greyhawk, first security officer on the Enterprise, cut down before her time.
That damn tar monster.
But yeah, the art is very good. Tasha is well represented, and Matt's right. Tasha is an interesting character in sort of like the D&D multiverse, just not particularly well represented here.
All right, shall we get into the first thing we're presented with in chapter 1, which is something that a lot of buzz has been talked about, which is, and something we've been calling for years, sort of decoupling species or races and their ability score adjustments and sort of guaranteed options. Let's talk about it.
I mean, there's not a ton to say here because we went over it, but they have now made it official. You can now adjust your ability scores as you see fit, regardless of your race. There is no reason not to do this. You do not have to do this, but making this option available hurts nobody and detaches, just no weird fantasy race science. I mean, there's, I know there's some people who are mad about this. It doesn't unbalance the game. There's really no downside. It's easy to do. You can take it or leave it.
My critique here is that this is great, right? There's no reason not to have this. The rules, if you get to them, are basically one sentence being like, put your ability score adjustments in whatever abilities you want to. Fine. And then there's also some rules about you can select a different language and you can swap any racial proficiencies you're given around. Perfect. I mean, sure, you can, if you're a mountain dwarf, you can change out all your weapon and armor proficiencies and be proficient in every tool, to which I say, great, do that if you want. It's not really unbalancing the game. However, I don't think it breaks the game, but it does unbalance the game a little bit because there was very little effort or thought put into this. Because not all races have a +2/+1 to their ability score adjustments. For example, one of the dwarf races, Mountain Dwarfs, gets a +2/+2. Many of the races get a +1/+1/+1. And variant humans get a +1/+1 to put into any ability scores. But if every race can do that, should they not also get something extra or special?
Actually, this is a good point. It is clear that they did not put a lot of thought into this, which is fine. Matt is right that you probably can unbalance or break things with this. I don't think that it's...
I'm not saying you can break things. I'm just saying some... and this is a minor side effect, and compared to the awfulness of racial ability scores, I'm glad to take it. It's just some options suffer as a result, and we're not compensated to make them just as interesting and attractive to players.
It does feel a little low effort. I agree.
It's low effort. It's low energy. I mean, obviously, they don't have room to reprint every species that has come out in everything. Though if they did, that would have been great. Can you imagine? I mean, the book would have been 40 pages longer, but I mean, it's only 190 pages. You probably could have fit it.
The other thing that I have about this, Matt, is that if you are the type of person that want to do this, you've probably already done it. You probably already, like, there are better rules. There are better homebrew rules for this already. And I get that if you're playing an official game or maybe if your DM is not cooperative, this is useful. But, this one page of being like, behold, you now have permission from wizards to do the thing that people have been doing for ages now.
Exactly. That's not it. It's not a new set of rules. It's just permission.
Yeah. And like, that's fine. It's just like, it doesn't feel particularly momentous. It's just, it's like a video game company, like, giving permission to modders, like, instead of like trying to shut them down. It's like, great, fine. It's, you're allowed now.
There's also presented the custom lineage, which is great. You can just make up your own thing, which is choose small or medium, speed 30 feet, increase one ability score by 2, gain a feat, and gain either dark vision or a skill. Me, in almost 90% of games, I'm going to pick dark vision.
You should always pick dark vision.
Dark vision's way more valuable than a single skill proficiency.
You get skill from all kinds of things. You can get dark vision from a couple places. Yeah.
Yeah. And this to me seems categorically better than the variant human, which gets +1 to 2 ability scores. So
yeah, I do think this is better than the variant human, but whatever. It used to be that was the only way to get like a feat at level 1, but now custom lineage lets you do that. Power creep, man.
I don't know if it's quite
really
power creep. It's not quite power creep, but
kidding.
it's just I would have liked to see a little more attention to detail, which would let players know also if your mission is to counteract this historically bad trend and racism rooted in your franchise, putting the maximum effort into fixing it lets players know you really care about it, instead of being like optional rules. If you want to, you have permission.
It does not feel like a priority, but that's okay. They did it. It's fine.
It's fine. We're not criticizing it. It's good. It's just not as good as it should be.
Yeah. It's there though. It's good. It's an optional rule. It's it's uncomplicated. Yeah. There's a little bit about training time in here, which I like. This is a rule that's been in Pathfinder for a while. I don't know that you need it, and as a DM, you can make this up as you go, but it's good to have sort of like a rule of thumb for if your players want to change something about their class or subclass or character, which is a thing I think you should be able to do. And then it's like, great, here's how we might play that out in downtime. Anyway.
Now, also in this first chapter is a reprint of the Artificer class from Eberron. As far as I could tell, it was identical except for the inclusion. So we probably shouldn't spend any time talking about it because we did like a whole episode on it. But it was identical to the Artificer class in the Eberron sourcebook, except it has some extra Artificer infusions and the Armorer class, which was introduced in Unearthed Arcana.
So yeah, that's exactly right. If you're an Artificer fan like we are, you've probably seen this all, but this is the most complete version of it, and it includes the Armorer class, which is neat, and some new infusions, which are good. But honestly, like, I gotta say, the Artificer, it's come an awful long way since it was a Wizard subclass.
That's right. and Rob, yeah, it sings. I have some quibbles with some of the ways that they describe the magic of the Artificer, right? They forgot the kind of magical hackerness that I like. There's some art of some handguns. The iconic Artificer here pictured is from Eberron, yet she lives in Sigil.
Sigil, yeah.
They forgot that that Eberron is disconnected from the Great Wheel. So
I mean, yeah,
whatever. Anyone, it can happen. It's just not common.
There's some great art here. I love the battle bear.
We got a new battle bear here.
New battle bear, and I like there's a sweet, Korean rocket launcher looking eldritch cannon. I don't know. This is great. I love the Artificer.
You played an Armorer, the Armorer subclass in one of my games. And since that's the new bit here, what's your take on the Armorer subclass after playing it for a couple sessions?
It was a lot of fun to play, and I think it's a pretty well-designed class. I don't know that it is particularly powerful compared to the other Artificer subclasses, but thematically, it was kind of neat.
It lets you tank. Right? If you want to be an Artificer tank, you can do that.
It's a little weird because you pick an armor model and you're basically divided into tank or some kind of like
wet work.
Yeah, like
guy.
I don't know. And it seems weird that the one complaint that I have is there's all these like, again, within those two like sub armor models, there's these different abilities. I don't know why you can't just pick and choose. I don't know why you have to like decide on a package within the package you've already decided on, right? That's the whole point of a subclass, right? Is that you pick a package of, I don't know. That's my only complaint about the Armorer, but like as it plays, it's a lot of fun. You get to tank. It's like the Battlesmith. It's like a more like combat oriented Artificer. Anyway, don't need to talk about it because we talked about all this a lot, but this is great. All in one place. Good stuff. Honestly, like I thought for a long time, the Artificer was never going to come to pass and it was going to suck. And then you know what? It is a pretty good, well-realized, well-balanced class. And I'm kind of impressed, to be honest.
Buy our Artificer supplement.
Yeah,
it works with these.
It still works. It's good. We worked hard on it.
It's good. Now, we get into the rest of the chapter, which goes through each class, providing optional class features and subclasses. I want to talk for just a second broadly about these optional class features, Rob. Can I do that? Is that okay with you?
We should talk about.
Will you let me talk about it? I will let you. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
I don't know why I'm getting so combative.
You have permission. You have my permission.
So the optional class features are basically, and it's a little unclear, right? And I can see new dungeon masters and players being tripped the fuck up by these because there's really two types, and they're not distinguished except when you read them in the text. There are some that are like, here's an additional thing that this class now gets if your dungeon master approves, right? Because everything in here is optional. Or here's an alternative class feature that replaces one of the things that you have in your class that you can pick if you and your dungeon master approve.
Yeah, and honestly, it is not entirely clear which is which. And this is one of the gripes I had too. For the first time, and I, I'm a role-playing game hyper nerd. And I don't mean anybody else to feel bad about this, but for the first time in the existence of 5th edition, barring like a couple of really poorly written rules, I was confused. I was confused by how these rules work, which is something that happens to me all the time in other game systems. I have been trying to hack together something for Shadowrun for a month now, but 5th edition, to its credit, almost always is extremely abundantly clear. And for the first time, I was like, I don't understand. And I still kind of don't. Like, some of these are just, you just get them, and others have to replace another feature. But that seems something about that seems not right. Like I'm looking at Barbarian right now, and it looks like there's just 2 things that you just get, and
or you could just get one. If your DM approves of only primal knowledge, you just get that. If your DM says, yeah, the Barbarian definitely needs a boost, which it does. You get both primal knowledge and instinctive pounce.
And I guess I don't have, like, from a balance perspective, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's just sort of confusing, I guess, is my issue with it. And
right.
Nothing, for example, nothing on Barbarian requires a replacement. Other classes, you replace the class feature with something else. I don't know. It's a little.
Some have both. And some have both. They just need to be like separated out into separate subheadings. Like, here are the buffs. Here are the alternative replacements if you don't like one of the features. They should have been
better, like, delineated. You just have to read very carefully, and it's easy.
You have to read each feature.
Yeah. I can see that it would be easy to get this wrong if you're not being careful. It's not a huge problem, just like it is an issue.
There's also like some subcategories within the things that like every class, if your DM approves, gets, right? Some are just kind of like quality of life changes. Like you can swap out your spells at these levels if you're a sorcerer. Or like some, that like don't really affect the outcomes in the game at all. Like if you're a monk, you can add one non-monk weapon as a monk weapon, right? These are just kind of quality of life. If you're like, God, I want to be a monk with a sword for so long. Can I please just be a monk with a sword, right? So some are quality of life, and some are actual buffs that are legit new things you get.
Right. And some things like the monk weapon are things that, as a DM, that have no impact on the game. And as a DM, you probably have already been like, yeah, okay, sure. You have a sword chucks instead. It has the same, it has the same, like,
Rob, sword chucks are a fighter weapon. That's an 8-bit theater joke.
I'm aware. But it has, you might say, fine, it has the same stats as, a club, but it's bladed, whatever, just you're using sword chucks. But this like gives, these are things that like give permission to you to be like, great, your monk is using a sword or a spear or something that's not like explicitly written into the class. But yeah, like Matt said, some things are additions, some things are just like quality of life. It's easier to switch spells, it's easier to use certain items and proficiencies and whatever. But do we want to go through this in specific, Matt?
Here is the point where we dive deep into each of the 12 classes.
All right, buckle up, kiddos.
The circle of 12 has been drawn. Rob is Jesus, I am the Christ, and these 12 classes are our disciples, and we will get into them.
I am the Kai, and Matt is the Ro, and here we go. Barbarian.
Hey, Barbarians got a buff. They get an extra skill and a free bit of movement when they rage.
Yeah.
This is needed because their class sucks compared to the fighter.
This is just a flat buff. Pounce is funny. Pounce used to be a huge fucking deal in 3.5 and Pathfinder because you could do like a full attack and all kinds of shenanigans. This is just like extra movement, which is awesome, which is great. It's never bad. Also, it gives the Barbarian something to do with their bonus movement or their bonus action. Matt, in my opinion, this does not go too far enough. I think the Barbarian still is kind of, well, here's the thing. All right, so I was reading some spirited Reddit arguments about the Barbarian.
Oh God.
And
do they have Reddit in England? I thought it was just an American thing.
I had to go to ye old Reddit. But you and I have always been the opinion that the Barbarian is not a great class. But power level wise, it has a D12 hit die, and it's, Path of the whatever is resistant to basically all damage, does extra, like, flat damage. So, in terms of power, the perception seems to be that the barbarian is actually quite strong. I think our complaint has always been that it is kind of one-dimensional and boring. And also, despite the fact that it has a big chunk and hit die and does a ton of damage, it cannot fly or have really any utility whatsoever. The barbarian is, even in its most, highly adaptive and power game to form, still, I walk up and hit it. So
yeah, I think what I was sort of looking for on this was they did one of the things, which was give barbarians more skills, right? Barbarians should be, people who have a broad swath of experience.
Listen,
so that's great.
Conan could climb, and he could sneak. He could
pick a lock,
woo women, pick a lock. Gave speeches. He became king. Listen, Conan was a very talented barbarian. He was not just rage smash.
He took levels of rogue. That's why he's good.
He did. He was Conan was a multi-class, but still, the point is the barbarian. So when we say the barbarian needs help, it's that it just has very little depth or utility as a class.
Here's the second part, and I think I can convince you of this. Is
the
barbarian
is
good as what it at what it does, but for example, you can't really build an effective barbarian that does something other than hit things with a very large weapon, right?
Yep.
And having like a barbarian that uses 2 weapons or something like that, or I don't know, dexterity or a high wisdom barbarian or something are not really rewarded, and it's one of those classes where you've got to do this one specific thing. And I don't know, a lot of the other classes allow you to do so many different things.
And we'll talk about, and there are a couple other classes that used to suffer from this that I think Tasha's does a good job of rescuing them from. But the barbarian, this is better. They have a little bit more movement. They have another skill, but ultimately barbarian still kind of like is missing some just extra, I don't know. It's still not quite there. Some of the subclasses are a bit more interesting, but they're still mostly just either more damage or more resistances or whatever,
Speaking of subclasses, we've got 2 here. The Path of the Beast, which lets you, when raging, gain bestial features, and the Path of Wild Magic, which lets you do random wacky things when you rage.
Path of the Beast is neat if you want to be like like some kind of lycanthrope, or, you can grow claws or a spiny tail. I don't know. Again, it's interesting, but it's still just like more damage, plus some like climb, swim, jump speed.
I like Path of the Beast a lot. I think it's a great subclass. It fills the need for everyone who's like, I want to be a werewolf, and you're like, here you go.
It's a good barbarian subclass, and it's actually one of my favorite barbarian subclasses. I shouldn't sound so disappointed, because this is, compared to some of the ones we've griped about before, it's well designed. It gives options. It gives you more tools in combat than a lot of the others do. And
the problem is the barbarian subclasses only provide almost exclusively combat benefits. Like for the Path of the Beast, wouldn't it be cool if this barbarian could turn into a wolf at higher levels, or a eagle, or a shark, or whatever?
Mm-hmm. You do get, again, swim speed, climb speed, or jump speed, which is good. And again, I think that makes this one of the better classes, because they are potentially they are out of combat and useful beyond just, initiative situations. But
so speaking of jump speed, you have erred here. You've made an error, Rob, because
ability.
you can choose.
I apologize.
When you jump, I'm going to read one of the options from Bestial Soul of the Path of the Barbarian. When you jump, make a strength athletics check and extend your jump by a number of feet equal to the check's total. You can make this special check only once per turn. Now, Rob, both you and I know that athletics jumping is just equal to your strength score. So let's say if you have a strength score of 20 because you're a barbarian, you can already long jump 20 feet. You roll a check, you'll probably have like a +8 bonus to it if you're proficient in athletics. On an average, that's like, let's say, another 20, right? On a slightly high roll. That means you can jump 40 feet. But, Rob, remember, your jumping is limited to your total speed that round. So this ability is it's less useful than you think it is. Though, however, you can make high jumps like nobody else in the game. It's just not as good as, let's say, what the monk gets for jumping.
It's
which
also,
is just a fly speed.
Again, not as good as like a first level spell. So which is, again, a major problem with martials in general. Anyway, the other subclass.
Anyway, it's also just super confusing, right?
Yes,
because if you don't know all those rules, and if you don't know whether you're making a high jump or a long jump,
I have to look up jump rules every single time.
It doesn't fucking say, and it's very strange, right? The jump rules are not super clear. Yeah. Anyway, that's all we gotta say. Otherwise, we like the Path of the Beast. Path of Wild Magic
sucks. Matt and I have already talked a lot about how like random stuff is, again, should be used sparingly and is often just kind of a pain. This is basically like a wild magic sorcerer, but you're a barbarian. But a
wild magic sorcerer can still cast sleep when she wants to.
Right.
A wild magic barbarian has no control over that.
The one kind of interesting thing is the baseline ability, which is you can sense magic, which is neat.
That's cool.
That's
like great.
That.
I love that.
However, as a consequence, whenever you rage, you roll on a D8 table and something wacky happens. Some things are good, some things are bad, some things are really bad. It sounds awful. It just sounds like a fucking mess. I don't know. You're just adding like 2 to 3 more rolls to every single rage.
Now so this is random comic subclass, and some players do like that, right? We should admit, and they're
wrong.
Fixed...
I'm sorry. If you like this, I'm sorry. You are not welcome at my table. No. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine.
They have fixed some things from the Unearthed Arcana, which basically excludes friendly characters from all of the random shit that can happen to you. Because before, you might roll a dice, and on a 1 out of 8 chance, you might strand your party in difficult terrain. They've changed the language so it only applies to enemies now. So that's good. But, yeah, Rob's point is if you're a player like you or I, we would like to choose when we rage. Do I have the ranged attack ability this round or the difficult terrain ability this round? Also, they're all kind of worded like, hey, isn't this fun and wacky? Can I read you number 3? When you rage, an intangible spirit, which looks like a flump or a pixie, your choice, appears and then moves to an enemy and explodes, right? Oh, exploding flumps. Like, yeah, okay, that's pretty... That'll be funny one time, I guess.
Anyway, we weren't even supposed to talk about these subclasses because a lot of them have appeared elsewhere. But the point is, Barbarian, of the Tasha's classes, this is one of the ones that I think could have used some more optional abilities. Subclasses are fine. They're not the ones that I like the best, but there's already some great subclasses for Barbarian. This could have used many more optional class features and just straight up additions, and it didn't get them. I just don't think that Wizards is all that enthusiastic about barbarians. They need a little bit more like flavor and depth and complexity, and they don't got it, folks. But whatever.
If the Barbarian of Wild Magic got to choose the powers that they learned or like could manifest, like for example the Rune Knight can, something we'll talk about later, it would be one of my favorite Barbarian subclasses.
Yep. If
not my favorite. But listen, they can't, so...
This is not difficult mechanically or conceptually to do. The Pathfinder Barbarian can be built and played a lot of different ways and has a lot of very unique and interesting subclasses. Anyway, you hate to see it. All right.
You hate to see it. Bards, my friend.
Bard. One of the things, this is a small thing, but one thing I really like is that every class that casts spells has gotten like a list of additional spells. Long overdue. It's been, there've been a bunch of new books and they haven't like updated this. This is a nice thing to have. Here are all these new spells.
Your bard can cast Command, a spell that bards should have, or Hero's Feast. Your wizard can cast Enhance Ability, right?
Mm-hmm.
You expect these classes to have these spells, and it was a shame they didn't. But now they do. This is great.
And
quality of life.
Quality of life. And there are two new bard abilities. One is these are also sort of quality of life. One of them is you can use your bardic inspiration die to improve spell damage or healing. Not a huge deal. A small thing. And
I would say this is in fact a huge deal.
Okay.
In that, I would argue Bard is one of the most powerful classes, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They get
already
a buffing
was.
mechanic. Yeah. They get full spells. They get a ton of skill abilities.
Like, the best action economy of almost any class. Like always something to do with a bonus action. Always effective.
A Bard always does 2 effective things a turn, right? Yeah. And they have many options to choose from. And magical inspiration is a huge buff. Adding the bardic die to maybe not damage, but sometimes damage, but to healing magic is super great. I don't dislike it because I think it's fun, but something to keep in mind is that bards were already really good, and this makes them even better.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think that it's a huge deal, but you're not wrong. Also, you can swap in ability score improvement for expertise.
Right, this is just one of the quality of life things.
Which is
all
good.
of these classes get
super
swapping abilities, right?
Yeah.
Usually at 4th or 8th level, et cetera, et cetera.
All
right,
2 subclasses.
Let's talk about the subclasses.
They're ones we've seen before. So the first is College of Creation.
But this one is very, very different than the Unearthed Arcana version.
Mm-hmm.
So their basic ability, Mote of Potential, which gives you more things to do with the bardic inspiration, is pretty similar to Unearthed Arcana. However, they also get Performance of Creation, nice ribbon. They can make a simple item, kind of like the Conjuration Wizard. At 6th level, this is the ability I want to talk a little bit about because it replaced your favorite ability from Unearthed Arcana, which was Undeniable Logic, where you could own people with facts and logic. You can now no longer do that.
I forgot that was on this subclass. I miss that, but I do like animating performance.
Now,
and it fits better with the theme, but I get a feeling you got something to say about this.
Let me propose something to you. That and see if you still like it. Animating performance lets you create a dancing item. This is kind of, and maybe we'll talk about this later, this is the new standardized pet. A million of these subclasses basically get the exact same pet, which is the same as the Artificer pet. And it's good pet rules, right? They're uncomplicated and they don't break the game while still being useful. But like the College of Creation is now a pet subclass. It basically gets the Artificer pet. However, this Artificer pet can be a large, medium, or small item, and it has a 30-foot fly hover speed. If I was this Bard of Creation, I would, for example, cast Animating Performance on a table, and then fly around on that table all the time.
I mean, yeah, of course, it's easily abusable, but I like it thematically. I'm going to choose.
I know, but is it too much to give a 6th level character permanent fly?
I mean, what is it replacing? Like what? No, I mean in a like compared to other bard subclasses. Like what are you trading off for a flying table? I mean, it's really good, but also the other 6th level. I mean, the 6th level bard subclasses are all.
Bard is just so powerful.
It's a really powerful class. Like
it's a good class without any. If you just take bardic inspiration, its skills and its spells, it's great, and then it gets some of the best like special abilities in the game.
I mean, this is really strong. You're not wrong, Matt, but it's more one dimensional than like what the core bard subclasses get. So, but.
Anyway,
it's all really
I'm in
strong.
the corner of the room 30 feet up on top of my flying table, and you can't hit me. I'm sorry.
Anyway.
College of Eloquence.
College of Eloquence. This is fun. I don't think this one is super powerful. It's very thematic, though. I really like it. It's
the themes of both of these classes are great.
Yeah.
I have one quibble with one of the College of Eloquence's things, which is Silver Tongue. Can I read you Silver Tongue?
Read me Silver Tongue.
You are.
I'm trying to anticipate.
You are a master. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to try to anticipate your complaint, but go ahead and hit me with
Okay, take a look at it as I read it. You are a master at saying the right thing at the right time. When you make a charisma persuasion or charisma deception check, you can treat a d20 roll of 9 or lower as a 10. So this is basically the ability that rogues get for certain skills at like 9th level or much higher level.
I think it might be even higher than that, yeah.
Let's say you're a bard. Let's say at 3rd level, you probably have a 17 charisma and are trained in both
I'm doing the
these
math
skills.
on this now. Yeah.
You cannot get lower than a 15 on a persuasion or a deception check. Now.
Oh, and then you get expertise on that by like, I already see it, by like 5th level, 6th level.
By 8th level, you are probably not getting lower than a 20. And at 3rd level, you're not getting lower than a 15. So my question is it bad to give characters bonuses to these abilities? Let's say maybe advantage or a way to get more advantage? No, not at all. However, you've basically taken a huge amount of risk out of social skills if you have this character in your party.
In my games, I can definitely see this being a huge annoyance because I have a lot of social situations. I ask for a lot of persuasion and deception checks. Yeah.
There's no reason for anyone else in the party to ever make one. And if it's a minor thing, like let's say if it's not a difficult one, unless you're going to game the DCs and just make the DCs higher, which you shouldn't do, right? You've basically taken out the risk in these things. Now, if this was a higher level ability, if this was their 14th level ability, I would have no problem with a 14th level character being like, I can do basic lies and basic persuasion to anyone who is not a super social genius like I am. But 3rd level,
without looking, I'm betting that even like a vaguely optimized bard would automatically pass almost every charisma check in a pre-written module or a like a wizard's module. You can do what you want in your homebrew games, but like they would just tear through any like official campaign. So that's a good point, Matt. I hadn't really done the thinking on that, but yeah, that's easily abusable.
I think it's less bad for deception because I think deception. Well, no, none of these checks are supposed to be opposed checks. It's supposed to be rules as written. I know we all run it differently at our table. The Dungeon Master sets a DC, but yeah, you're never gonna fail any but the most hard checks, and I think that's just bad design.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Otherwise, though, good theme, fun class or fun subclass. Good luck if your players decide to abuse this.
Clerics.
Okay, clerics.
God, I love these.
I do too. This is good. Clerics are one of those classes that's very good and strong. It's always been kind of. It's a little bit better than 5th edition, but they lack some of the excitement options, and they get a little bit of extra here, which is good.
Right. The thing clerics need is lots and lots of domains, because that's what makes your cleric interesting. A lot of your class is defined by your domain, and we get 3, I think, really good ones.
Yeah.
Order, Peace, and Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
I really like order, right? This is your buff your party domain and make people obey you.
Order is really good. It's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah, it's very much a party class, buff and or battlefield control. Yeah, good strong stuff. I really like this. It's well designed. It's on theme. It's
Peace is super fun. If you want to be the party buffer, you can do it as good as the bard almost, I think, with the peace one. You can walk around and bless people and healing. That's just such a fun thing. Protective bond is also great. And then the Twilight domain is also fun if you want to be a cleric of the morning or the evening, with one exception, I think.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading this, and it seems to me like Twilight has got to be one of the most powerful cleric domains that has ever been written. You get martial weapons and heavy armor. You have dark vision.
Yeah, I didn't understand the martial weapons and heavy armor. It didn't seem to fit with the theme.
Yeah, and then plus you get a 30-foot radius aura, which grants temporary hit points and like immunity to charmed and frightened. You can fly at 6th level.
As a bonus action too, so it's great for your action economy.
Bonus action.
Yeah, I think it may be the most powerful domain. Plus, speaking of bad design, Eyes of Night can give your entire party 300-foot dark vision. Now, at first level, I think this is bad design because many of us write encounters, dungeons, I know pre-written stuff are written like this, where vision is a very critical element of gameplay. And characters that have dark vision are rewarded. Who's got the light? Is someone going to cast light? Are you going to bring a torch? People will see you if you're bringing a torch, right? And you've just wiped that out with Eyes of Night. Kind of just like how the eloquence ability wipes out trivial deception and perception checks.
It might not be so bad if it started out at like 30 feet or 60 feet and then got to 300 as you level up. But as it stands, it just starts out at 300 feet, which is just, I don't know. Anyway, it's a cool domain. It just seems really, really powerful.
Yeah. And people might think we're being grumpy or nitpicking here, but I think the problem with this is not its power. It's that from a dungeon master's perspective, you've wiped out one of the tools in your toolbox to make encounters interesting or challenging, which is it's dark in here. What are you going to do about that?
I'm just comparing it to other cleric domains, some of which are good, but like few of which have this many features.
They have all the things.
Yeah. I don't know.
And we forgot to mention, and I'm okay with this. I know people consider clerics a class that doesn't need any buffs, but one of the things that I think is frustrating about the cleric class is often if like no undead show up or you have one of the blood domains, you have nothing to do with channel divinity. And there's an optional feature, the buff feature, which is just you can burn your channel divinity to regain spells. I am completely fine with this just because it takes the no fun away.
It also gives you, again, you have, this is an improvement in 5th edition. You already usually have something to do with channel divinity. This gives you something else. Again, options are always good. There's no, I don't know, there's no downside. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
So I love these. I love all of these, except for, as Rob pointed out, Twilight may have all the things, and Eyes of Night is just, it bugs me.
I like all of these. I even like Twilight.
Say it out loud.
I'm just like, I was looking at it and reading it. I was like, wow, this is a lot. Anyway, cleric. Yeah. That's cleric.
Let's talk about the druid. Druids get more spells and an optional class ability that lets them cast Find Familiar. Hooray, you can have a little squirrel. That's good.
This one was a little disappointing. Druid's fine. Druid is a good class, but it just did not get a bunch. And I thought there was room to add more, but you know. The subclasses that are included, one of my favorites from I think like a while ago,
A long time ago.
Circle of
Spores
Spores
was like 2
I don't know why it
years
took them so
ago.
long. This one's a little weird, but I think it's fun, and I like what they ultimately settled on, and I think it's a good theme. You know, I like it. Circle of Stars is
My notes were druids are
Yeah.
good. Like, I love all these subclasses. I love the druid
Yeah.
class. I think it's working great.
Circle of Stars is
Circle of Stars is great.
super
The
fun.
star map stuff
I
is
love actually. I didn't
evocative.
remember this one from before, but the
Now, this one might be new. I put a note here. Matt, look up whether this is new or not. And Circle of Wildfire, I don't
Well, we're
remember
gonna assume
seeing
it's
this in
new.
Unearthed Arcana.
I kind of
So this
like
might
it.
be
I
our
think it's
one
fun.
new
You
thing.
can summon like a fire spirit, and it like creates an explosion. It's fun. It's neat. You're you're like a wildfire
Yeah.
druid. It
Again, using the new
Which are good.
universal pet rules. Like, this Wildfire Spirit is your Artificer Homoculi, your
Steel
Bard of
Defender.
Eloquence animated object. They're basically all the same with special
Yeah.
little abilities.
you just
right?
like you do a little bit more fire damage. You can do a little bit more hit point healing. I love this. I actually really liked the Circle of Wildfire. Druid, yeah, Matt's right with his notes. Druid's already good class. I would like some more options just because options are nice. These 3 subclasses are really good, or circles. They're circles for druids. Yeah, this is great. Nothing.
We love our druids. Did you see any in
I
England?
did not. I was at Stonehenge and I looked about, but if they were there, they were using Pass Without Trace, and I did not witness them.
All right, Rob, I think we're going to have the most to talk about of all the classes.
You
for
guessed
our
it. You guessed it.
big
Yep.
boys and gals.
Our large
It's
adult
the fighter,
sons and daughters, the fighter. Wizards really outdid themselves here. You know me, listeners, if you've been listening for a long time, I'm a big fighter fan. I have always felt like the fighter kind of gets the short end of the stick in a lot of ways. They can be kind of one-dimensional, and Wizards has all these, or a lot of RPGs, but Wizards especially has these ideas about like what martial characters should be able to do and not do that really limited fighters for a long time. But they did a lot here. They gave fighters a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Now, 2 asterisks on that. We love our marshals. I'm going to point out to you, Rob, my biggest critique of all of this is every single one of these subclasses has magic powers. If you enjoy playing a regular person in a world of magical danger who is using their wits and brawn to navigate it, you're out of luck here. Every class has magical powers.
To be
presented
fair,
here.
Matt, you have been given a lot of options if you want to do that. None of the subclasses are going to be relevant to you. But
I'm sad we didn't get our brute, Rob. I was hoping for an update for the brute.
Yeah,
so that was
I also was
disappointing.
disappointed by the lack of brute. But the cool thing is
The other thing I would point out is the fighter didn't get a
the
buff.
fighter did not get a buff. The fighter got a lot of.
There's no
thing-
buff for fighters.
Yeah.
There's a quality of life
the
thing,
is
but
about
there's no
fighters is
buff.
that theoretically, technically, they're strong enough, but they're also just, they can kind of be pigeonholed, and you really need to specialize to be good at anything. But fighters have gotten options, which is one of the things I think they needed a lot of. And so
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about those options. First, they got 3 new fighting styles. Let's talk about each of these, because I think they're each really interesting.
The first one is blind fighting, which you get blind sight, which I think this is great. I think this is super cool.
Right. This was in Unearthed Arcana, but it wasn't as strong. It wasn't pure blind sight. It was not good enough. And now it's just straight up blind
and it's
sight.
only out
This
to
is
10
great.
feet, but that's honestly, that's fine. I think that's really cool. I mean, this also allows you to play effectively a blind character, or one that fights with a blindfold or something like that, but also, even if you don't, like, you can fight in darkness or whatever. I'm not sure, like, what conditions I would pick this as my fighting style, but I think it's really cool. And I think that in certain campaigns, it would be awesome. And it allows you to kick, like, invisible creatures' asses. It's awesome. I'm a big fan of this.
Rob, here's my suggestion, because the fighter didn't get a buff, is I think all fighters should get like a second fighting style at like 4th level or something
I don't
like
think
that.
that would. Yeah.
Because, I mean, the champion gets one, but it's much later on, and this would not
I don't think it would
break
break the game at all. I think it would be a good idea. If you're listening, feel free to just give that to your fighters. I don't think anything bad would happen.
Blind fighting rules in interception blows.
Yeah, it sucks.
Let me explain why. It's the same text if you remember your protection fighting style, which lets you, if you're wielding a shield, grant disadvantage on attacks against allies within 5 feet of you. This is the same thing. You don't have to use a shield, so you can just use your sword or whatever. But instead of granting disadvantage, which is always useful, this allows you to reduce the damage by 1d10 plus your proficiency bonus. Now, that's fine at early levels. However, if you get above like 7th, 8th, 10th level, that's a pittance.
Yeah,
whereas disadvantage can cause the entire attack to miss.
It scales with your proficiency bonus, but that does not.
Which is basically not at all.
High. At all.
Damage does not scale with proficiency bonuses in this game. Damage ramps up, keeps ramping in this game.
By 3rd level, you are going to be using your reaction to deflect a pittance. It sucks. Good idea. It needs balancing. It's bad.
Yeah. However, the final fighting style is my personal favorite of all time. Superior technique, it gives you a free Battle Master maneuver. So even if you're not a Battle Master, you can pick up one. Let's say you want that one that's like the quasi-warlord ability that lets your allies do something, or just the one that gives you extra damage, or the one that lets you parry, right? Though, if you're picking those ones, you're better off picking interception or... things. But if you pick the right maneuver, this is fun. However, Rob, I think this really shines is if you built a Battle Master fighter who is a human or the variant character, you take as your feat at 1st level, maneuver initiate or whatever it's called that grants you 2 Battle Master maneuvers. You take this fighting style at 1st level. You can start as a Battle Master, right? You don't have to wait till 3rd level. You start with 3. You start with, I think, 2 superiority dice, and the Battle Master improves all your superiority dice, regardless of where they're from. So you'll be an uber Battle Master now, knowing 3 extra maneuvers and having 2 extra superiority dice, which is, I think, my go-to fighter now.
This is something that has been long needed, and you could kind of do it before, but now you can really, if you want to, you can really specialize in maneuvers, which if you're playing a fighter, you probably have some interest in. You probably want to be able to trip or push or disarm or any number of other things. And you can already sort of do that, but you have to be a Battle Master. And this, along with the new feat, what is it? Martial versatility, not martial versatility, whatever you were just talking about, that gives you a superiority die.
It's an old feat. It's in the original player's handbook. Yeah.
Anyway, if you take all the feats, if you focus on it, you can really be good at maneuvers, which is awesome. Long overdue. The thing is, like, there's nothing like unique about this. It doesn't require any like innovation. This is just more options, and it's great. It rules. Matt, are we not counting thrown weapon fighting and unarmed fighting as?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Those are new.
Those are new too. They're just not very
Matt was
good.
saying 3 new fighting styles, but there are technically 5.
I forgot to flip the page. Folks. We're on 42 now.
I like these. Matt's correct. They're not very good or very interesting. I like thrown weapon fighting because I like throwing weapon fighters because they're fun. It doesn't do anything interesting except allow you to throw weapons as part, or draw and throw as part of an attack, and do a little bit of extra damage. If you like a guy who throws axes or knives or chakrams or even rocks, as I do, finally Wizards has given you permission to do that, basically.
Yes.
And
unarmed fighting makes you still not as good as a monk at unarmed fighting, but you can do it, which is why, given these 2 new fighting styles, I'm of the opinion all fighters should get 2, and that way you won't feel so bad about picking unarmed fighting or thrown weapon fighting. You can still take one of the ones that is actually really useful.
So this is great. 5 new fighting styles, 2 of which are really good. 3 are fine. You also get new maneuvers.
New maneuvers, tactical assessment, quick toss, commanding presence, grappling strike, brace, ambush,
Are
bait
you
and
so?
switch.
Are you like? We don't need to go through any of these. Are you particularly excited about any of these? They're good. I think. I don't know that they're like mind blowing. I guess.
I mean, there's some that let you, for example, add more superiority dice to ability checks. So if you want to be that more versatile fighter, that's fine. The one that lets you do stealth and initiative is super fun. Bait and switch might be useful as kind of it's not exactly bait and switch. It's more of I'm the ultimate tank.
It's unless you
in that you can move your allies around and protect them. That's probably the most
5 years later,
powerful
Wizards
one.
has finally acknowledged that people want to do battlefield control, and you can finally do some battlefield control. You can swap places with somebody else. You can do some. Again, still not as much as the Warlord used to be able to do in 4th edition, but it's good.
Right. If you wanted to create your more Warlord thing, you create a human fighter that picks superior technique and the martial adept feat, and then you have enough options, right? You can pick enough maneuvers, because the maneuver selection is fairly limited for the Battle Master, but if you get 3 more than normal, you are good to go on this. I think my favorite is actually quick toss, which is like immediately throw a dagger or a hand axe at someone. It's like someone wrote this after watching Aragorn fight the Uruk-hai
I love
guy.
quick toss. I think it's, again, I love it because it gives you something to do with your bonus action. You can throw something. It feels good, right? Like you want your fighter to be like Aragorn, right? You want him to fight with a bow and a sword and his fists and throw out daggers and feel like he's got a lot of tools in his tool belt. And quick toss lets you feel that way. That's also my favorite maneuver option as well.
Of course, Aragorn can't take this. He's a ranger.
It's true. It's a good point.
Speaking of more fighter things that are not actually martial, there's 2 subclasses, the Psy Knight and the Rune
Psy
Knight.
Warrior.
Lots of knights.
Psy Warrior, Matt.
Psy Warrior. Sorry, Warrior. They changed the name. It was Psychic Warrior, and now it's Psy Warrior.
Yeah, I know.
Whoop,
Gangnam
style.
They're both good. Actually, they're both great. Like Matt said, they're...
So, wait. I would say the Psy Warrior is great in that it does what... it's like the Battle Master without the complications. You get to add extra dice to things, what the Battle Master does, but it's more simplified.
I apologize. I actually don't think it's great. And the reason I don't think it's great is because I'm tired of extra die pools. I'm sorry, we've already talked about this, but every designer should resist at every possible opportunity adding more die pools. And both the Psionic Warrior, or the Psy Warrior, sorry, and the Soul Knife, which we'll come to later, have more die pools. And it's fine. It's good. It's not that complicated. You can do it. You can do it without adding a die pool. Challenge yourself.
Well, Rob, I saw this picture of this little white fluffy terrier that fell into a die pool and it was all pink. I kind of liked it.
Fuck off.
It's very cute. No, the Psychic Warriors changed from the Unearthed Arcana. Gone is the funky mechanic of where you roll the highest or the lowest, the die increases. They were good to get rid of that. This is, I think, a class for people, again, who want a more simple Eldritch Knight or Battle Master. Yeah. It can do the base damage things of those class, or of at least the Battle Master, without having to track more complicated things. You can jump, you can shove people.
I mean,
you can create
it's
a
like
shield,
if you want to play a Jedi
it's
Knight,
very simple
sort of,
stuff.
It's a good option for that without having to do a bunch of complicated stuff. The Rune Knight. Matt, you do not like the Rune Knight.
I'm just so puzzled by this class. I love the theme, giants and runes. I'm just, again, I guess my critique's the same as when we looked at it from the Unearthed Arcana. The runes don't always do what you would expect them to do.
The runes,
but I like that you can get
it's
big.
cool.
That's fun.
We should make a point. This is very interesting. You can become large. You can become a large adult son and permanently stay that way. This is a new thing. I guess kind of
temporarily stay that way.
Sorry,
1 minute.
Right. It's just for a minute. I thought it was longer, but yeah. And then you're big. You embiggen yourself. Yeah. The runes, I think they're supposed to be like based off of like the giants, but it just doesn't. They just don't do what I think they're gonna do. I agree. It's all very complicated.
Right. Like the frost one gives you bonuses to ability checks and saving throws. The fire one can trap enemies. Like they're all very interesting. But they're hard to get a handle on in things. I'm fine with this class. It's it's flavorful. I just don't like its design in the implementation of the runes. Everything else is fine. The embiggening is fine. Knowing runes and selecting them is fine. It's just what they actually do. They all give a passive bonus plus a quick buff that you can use like once per short or long rest. It's just what those buffs are. I could see someone making a rune knight and just picking things that they never know how or when to use.
Yeah. It's fine. It's a good concept. It's just a little weird, I guess, is the thing.
I mean, it's cool. I mean, wouldn't you want a fighter that can enter a prophetic state? Cool. That's cool.
And then there's this cool bit at the end, which I really like. Now that the fighter is much more deep and complicated, Wizards has been like, here's some Battle Master builds that you can use to create sort of like different types of fighters. And it gives you like a fighting style and maneuvers to pick and feats. This is not necessary. I kind of like it. I think it's neat. I think it's useful for players. I definitely have players who might benefit from seeing this. And anyway, I like it. It's good.
Rob, do you really think this is great? So, for example, the Duelist, it gives you a recommended fighting style, maneuvers, and feats. One of the recommended feats is Weapon Master.
Okay.
Rob, do you remember what
Matt,
Weapon Master gives you?
I did not say that they were good in that I would pick all of them. I just like the general concept.
I like the general concept too, but if you're going to do this looks slapdash together at the last minute. For example, several of these suggest that a fighter should pick Weapon Master. Weapon Master gives you proficiency with 4 weapons of your choice. Each one must be a simple or martial weapon. Canny listeners will know that fighters already have proficiency with all simple or martial weapons. This is lazy.
All right. Matt's right. Matt's correct. Matt's correct. I didn't read.
Just do your work.
I didn't read them that closely.
I do understand, Rob, what you're saying, which is like building a Battle Master fighter is complicated. And if you want to be an archer or a duelist, it's maybe not clear how to do this. It's just they fucked up.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, literally, you could quibble with like, oh, maybe that's not the most optimal feat to take. Whatever, I'm not going to quibble with that. That feat doesn't give you any benefits.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Maybe it's just a typo.
It's not. we both know that it's not, Matt.
They just forgot what Weapon Master means because it sounds good, right? Shouldn't a duelist take Weapon Master?
Fine.
I made Rob sad. Hey, Rob, remember Superior Technique? Rob, just a couple seconds ago, we were talking about commanding presence.
I was thinking about commanding presence.
Yeah. It was good. Rune Knight, he's fun. We love the fighters.
Stuff. This is good.
We're not that negative.
Universal good changes. Matt,
all right, Rob, we're halfway through the classes.
We're gonna have to stop, and we're gonna have to come at it again fresh because there's so much more to talk about. Stay tuned, listeners. I guess I hope you like this stuff because
there's a monk buff.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
We want to talk about more. I'm sorry that now we can't get through any of these books without 2 episodes, but that's the way it is, folks. There's just too much shit to talk about.
Them's the rules. Hey, listen, you got to cut us a break. Wizards It's been 2 years since Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Or has it been 3?
It's been 2 years, right? Yeah.
It's been 2 years. We only get these are. Let us have a little treat.
Podcasters can have a little character options as a treat. All right. Okay. So thanks for
Rob. You know what? Rob?
What do I know?
It's good to be back, Rob.
It's good to be back, Matt. I'm thinking I'm back. And we're talking about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. All right, folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I know a lot of you have written in. We will answer letters eventually. We will get to the rest of the book next time.
Yeah. Hey, and if you like the show, and don't think we're part of some vast left-wing conspiracy to defame conservatives in Magic the Gathering, please leave us a rating and a review. We would really appreciate it.
Yes. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. It's also, if you do think we're a conspiracy and you want to leave a review, that's
what?
engagement.
Go ahead.
That counts. That counts as engagement. So
honestly, it makes my day when someone thinks we are doing a hit piece against, I don't know, just awful people by just saying, hey, this person seems pretty awful.
We're doing a cancel culture is what we're doing. Anyway, thanks for listening. Have a good weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, and keep rolling them dice.